Boom, we're live. There you go, Steve.
Wow, that was quite the introduction. I wasn't expecting that at all. This is Husky Hoops, the best sports content for all Uconn sports athletics on the Coach Schuman Sports and Entertainment YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe button any chance you get. And we provide the best of the best, starting to my bottom. Uconn legendary women's basketball player, national champion, and now head coach at Western Connecticut State University. She went from being a husky to a wolf. I don't know which is scarier. Maria Conlon. Maria, hello. Yeah, I get a wave.
Morning, guys.
Is your car fixed up? Everything's good?
My car's still in the shop. I have a rental.
Oh, it's still there? Oh, I'm
Still
sorry.
there.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. And then we have also the icon himself, the voice of the Huskies, the best of the best, Joe D'Ambrosio. Joe, welcome. Oh, I gotta bow. That means something special right there. And then obviously there's the Coach Schuman up there. The next greatest influencer.
That's all you need. Just say Coach. That's it.
With 1.25 million subscribers, we're just going up and up. Yeah. Since we hit 1 million, we've been skyrocketing. We hit 200,000 pretty fast after that. I attribute that to most of my content, to be honest, but that's to be debated. How are you, Coach? Do you have a busy morning?
Me? Not that busy, no, actually.
Not that busy.
Tickling the ivories, Coach?
What's that?
We tickling the ivories? Getting warmed up for the show?
Get warmed up. I did hit the gym this morning.
Oh, that's good. That's a good start to the day.
Yeah, I try to do it as much as I can.
Joe, I actually had a question for you.
Yes, Steve.
It wasn't necessarily hoops related, but it was more media related.
Sure.
Just because I was curious about this. Well, I have two questions. One of them happened in my dream, and this is a real question. Has the Twitter game and social media, especially for you guys covering these sports teams, has that changed at all how you cover the players? Because they put so much content out themselves. They put a lot of quotes out themselves. Will you use quotes that they may put out on a tweet after a game or on social media?
No.
Or, okay, you don't at all. You still directly it has to come.
If I don't hear it personally, I'm not quoting them.
It didn't happen.
Yep.
Okay. I was just wondering about that. So for you personally, it really hasn't changed the game on how you cover the team, how you report on the team.
No, and don't forget when I was doing the games on the radio, social media was in its infancy.
Yes.
Twitter, and wasn't a big deal. I never got on Facebook till 2016, so that was the last 2 years that I did the games. But it was different. But I would say no with the teams I cover now, with Hartford Athletic and all the Uconn teams. If I see a quote in a newspaper story, I'll use it during the broadcast, but not on social media.
Right. Do you think that ESPN I've seen using Twitter quite a bit, and some of the larger networks use Twitter for quotes on players as opposed to directly interviewing them. Do you think it's made a difference with the larger networks and how they use social media?
Oh, yeah, I think so, because they can't get everywhere. Our little corner of the world, we get pretty good access to coaches. We get great access to coaches, good access to players in some sports, no access in others. But that's the way of the world. But yeah, I think the big net like ESPN, CBS Sports, you almost have to do it because you can't be there all the time. So,
And I wanted to just get your perspective on Tom Brady and the Raiders. They're saying that Tom Brady may have to step down from Fox as an announcer because of a conflict of interest as being part owner of the Raiders. Do you believe that?
Yes.
There could be you do? You think there's a definite conflict of interest?
Yeah, he can't do his job properly, Steve. He's not
Okay.
allowed in the midweek meetings.
No, he's not. Production meetings, nothing. He can't watch practice.
He can't go into the practice facilities. So he's cheating Fox. He can't do the job the way he was hired to do the job. Now, look, right. I'm not a Brady guy. If I was a Brady guy, I'd probably be, he's fabulous. He's the best guy in the world. And look, his commentary is okay. It's not great.
Sure. No, it's not. No, he's definitely a little painful on the ears, I would say. But yeah, I was just curious about that because they were saying that he would possibly be forced out of his contract with Fox, which I think would be a big blow to him because it was like $375 million. They gave him the top announcer spot, and he clearly wasn't ready for it. Right. I was just surprised that they didn't bring him along and start him off at, with mid games as opposed to the game of the week.
Well, I think he's Tom Brady. They pushed it for the publicity standpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
It's on the big network every week. If he's doing Giants Browns on a Sunday at MetLife,
no one's going to see it.
That's not. Yeah, I mean, it's big in the New York and Cleveland market, and then in Hartford, if there's not a Patriots game on at this on the same network, if it's on CBS. But no, I think he's been mediocre at best.
Yeah. Maria, what about you? With especially the Uconn girls, they're very active on social media. I did one episode. Can't get it right. One episode. The women at Uconn and the women that you coach, social media has definitely changed the game as far as being interviewed and what they post and put out. How do you handle that as far as talking to them, not controlling them, but advising them on, things they should say, things they shouldn't. And if you see it being used by the website or by the papers that cover the WestCon team.
I mean, I don't see people using what they do. And so, I think first things first, I always tell any young kid to control their privacy settings within any social media that they're using so that they can control who sees their content. Because, if you make all of your stuff public, then you got to be really intentional with the content that you throw out there because it's your brand. So I think the conversations I just have, where you have to be extremely mindful of what you put out there. At our level, I don't know if it's as magnified as it is at a higher scale, right? Like Paige Beckers has 20 endorsements, so she's got to be really
she's very active
what she puts out there because it might not be in alignment with some of the companies that are paying her to endorse their products. So I think there's that piece of it, and I think it's just a piece of I saw the other day that some guy got arrested for stalking Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, and again,
it's crazy.
There's that whole component too, right? The accessibility for fans to have to athletes is kind of scary because, if you're posting that you're at a certain restaurant or a certain place, like people follow you, like there's some crazies out there. They might go and try to find where you're at. So I think that, my whole thing is don't put anything out there that either you don't want people to know that can affect your brand. And not everybody should know your every move, right? Like there's some stuff you should keep to the chest. So
nobody should know your every move. I totally agree, Maria.
Yeah. It's scary stuff like this Caitlin Clark, bonanza that we have. And I actually follow her on Instagram and I don't really see her posting much stuff. So
no,
for her to be able to be stalked is kind of scary, but the more stuff you put out there, it's out there. People screenshot it, they save it. So you're going to be going and you delete it. It's still there. You got to be really intentional with that stuff.
The internet is forever, as we all know. right, Dave? The internet is forever. There's nothing we can do about it. You put it out there, they're always going to find you.
They are. They always will.
Oh, you're frozen. Okay.
Isn't that beautiful?
I love it when you're frozen. You look like you're in such a great mood.
Yeah, actually, this one I look like I'm in a great mood, but I'm also handsome there, so I'll take it.
Yeah, you got nice hair. You got the slick
Hey, you
back
got a good hair day.
Yeah, you got
How much
the
crap do you put in that hair, Schuman?
I'm from New Jersey. I got to make sure it looks nice.
I bet you put a lot more than Maria puts in.
I don't know if I probably do. But you gotta look sharp sometimes, at least.
Hey, I just got an email that's kind of interesting, guys, from Uconn, and I wanted to share it with you. It's the annual NCAA financial report, which is kind of telltale. It says the amount of institutional support received by UConn athletics in financial year 24 was down 32%. Decreases in personnel costs, substantial increase in overall ticket sales and fundraising venues. They self-generated 60% of their own revenues, up 16%. Almost 8,700 people donated to athletics, which was a 20% increase. Total financial commitments total $26 million. They've got $98.3 million in gifts over the last 4 years, and the impact on the state, economic impact, almost $243 million that went to the state of Connecticut through UConn.
In the black, though, it wasn't a deficit. They made.
Oh no! It was in the black. Wow. It was in the black. So things were. So it was a good year financially as well as athletically at UConn last year. So
wow,
that's great.
That is surprising. That's not the narrative that they've been pressing. So it's good that they're getting some financial support, I guess.
Well, I mean, look at all the successful sports teams: 2 basketballs,
baseball,
football, baseball, 2 hockeys, 2 soccers. I mean, these sports are thriving. I don't think there's ever been a time when teams have been better as a group at UConn, and I think that every sport reaches a different audience.
Right.
Maria knows this better than anybody. Back in the old days, men's basketball fans were men's basketball fans, women's fans were women's fans, and never the twain should meet. That's changed a little now because it costs more to go to the games, so the people with the money are fans of both teams. But I just think, I think that's a good sign that they're making more money. They don't need as much money from the school, and donations are up. But as we said, with the end of the collectives, we'll see what happens in fiscal year 25.
So I apologize. I did not know this. The collectives are ending altogether for all.
Well, at least at UConn it is.
Yeah,
and I know it is at UConn. Yes, I know it is.
I'm thinking at UConn. What's that, Shu?
Bleeding Blue is gone.
Right. Yes. Store Central isn't, though.
But that's not a collective, though.
It is a collective. Bleeding Blue was a non-profit collective. Store Central is a for-profit collective. That's where the kids get paid to give interviews and go on their shows for the content, and they do the insider news.
Okay, so that's a paid for NIL deal that they get.
Bleeding Blue, if you made a donation to Bleeding Blue and they, promised so much money to Skylar Bell, he would have to do charity work to get that money. That's how it was worked out. Bleeding Blue was all done. They were paid by doing charity work. Store Central was for profit, and it was for interviews and access to the players.
No different than if you owned a truck dealership and you wanted to have someone sponsor, you paid them to come. And
That's what Syracuse does. Yeah, Syracuse has a
so the
truck.
Storage Central, I got it. So I understand now. Okay.
Yeah. So the first game that we had, Joe, was a really tight one and a close loss to Villanova.
And who told you that might happen?
I believe you did, sir.
Yeah.
But you did poo-poo me when I said Villanova was one of the better teams in the Big East.
Well, they're not. They're not.
It was you still don't think so?
It was not having McQueen. It was not having
McNeely. Right.
Alex Karaban had a bad game and missed 2 free throws. The primetime players, Stewart was great. Mulaney, as I told you, until he does it consistently, I'm not buying into it. He was good on Saturday. He wasn't good on Tuesday. And then Stewart didn't play well on Saturday. There's too much inconsistency in my way of thinking. Diarra's is steady. Karaban's is steady. Ball's is steady. The post guys combined are steady. But that 5th spot without McNeely will give them until he comes back.
Yeah, they're not making up for it as far as the scoring and the contributions that he does all over the court. And they just – Mahaney, like you said, it's just way too inconsistent with him. And they're trying to give him some minutes, but he's not producing like they need him to.
Well, not every game. That's the problem. If you give him 15 minutes, you want 6 to 8 points. You want a couple of assists, and what you want him to play defense, and that's not. You don't get that every game. I was happy to see that they gave Noel a little more time in the Saturday game, the Georgetown game.
Which you have said all along, you thought he would be.
You got to break him in. I think if he's your number 2 point guard, you're better off.
Right. No, I agree. I agree because Mahaney just isn't doing it right now, and they need someone who can step in and can take control, and he's been able to get that opportunity. But it was good to see that Karaban responded against Georgetown. Maria, what did you?
Did anybody really think he wasn't going to?
No, he's mentally tough. He doesn't go in the tank. He plays hard. He plays fierce. He plays with passion. He's not someone who's going to phone it in over a bad game. It was it was a typical low scoring Villanova game. That's just the style they play, and they play a half court offense, and that's really what we like to get out and go. We're not the best at the half court, but that's Uconn Villanova. That's what we always see when they play each other for the most part. It's a slower down pace. Maria, what did you think of the Villanova game with the Uconn men?
Yeah, I mean, I agreed with Joe last week where I thought that was going to be the tougher one for them. I just think that pavilion is I think Villanova is smart. If they're smart, they'll play more games there because I think it really works to their benefit. I think it's a bigger advantage. So I wasn't surprised by that. Honestly, the only thing I was surprised by was Alex Karaban missing not 1 but 2 free throws.
Right.
Because it's just not like him. I thought, all right, he missed the first. Great, we're going into another overtime. And then he misses the second. Now, I'm always a big, Joe, I don't know what your thoughts were on that last play. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought I thought it should have just been out of bounds UConn ball.
Oh, and absolutely. All the UConn people on X, the diehards, are always bitching and moaning about calls. It's unbelievable.
They do.
UConn can't lose a game. If UConn lose a game, it's always the referee's fault. But I totally agree. I thought they caught a break on that.
Yeah, and so here, you flash forward and it's like, man, I wish, now that he missed the 2, right? Because I always play ball don't lie, right?
Right.
So he didn't really get fouled, and now he missed 2 free throws. I would have rather they had it with the 8-9 seconds out of bounds again underneath.
Yes.
They can run something at the rim. So it's hit or miss because the whole thing with men's basketball that I still don't get and understand why they can't streamline it to make it all the same. Meaning, like, why are we still playing halves instead of quarters? And the pros
Totally agree.
quarters? And then there's no advancing the ball under a minute in men's basketball. So now you miss 2 free throws, you got a foul. No matter if you call a timeout or not, you still got to go the length of the court. So I wish that they would change that because I think it does change the dynamic of the end of the game. You can take a little bit more chances, knowing that if you foul and they make 2 free throws, you're down 3. You can still advance it to half on a timeout and get a good shot up. But you can't do that on the men's side. So
I totally agree.
Back to your original question, I was not surprised. I wasn't surprised that they played as well against Georgetown. I kind of was in total agreement with how that would have went. Obviously, they could have squeezed out that win. Could have gone either way at Villanova, but I didn't think it was going to be a cakewalk at all. So,
right. I think when they play them up in wherever it's in Stores or in Hartford, I think they smoke them the second time around.
Yeah, I agree.
Maria, you mentioned where Villanova plays. Do they also play at another venue? I apologize for not knowing this.
So traditionally they would play where the Sixers play, I believe, right?
Right. Yeah, Wells Fargo Center.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever seen the men play the Villanova men in the Pavilion. That's always where we played.
Right.
Yes.
And it was always a tough place for us to play. I can't even imagine the noise level because you got different demographics of who go to the men's game versus the women's. What it was like in there that day. I'm sure it was a wild scene. But like fans are like right on the court. The Pavilion is not big. It's a tough place to play.
Yeah. And I mean, it was good to see that, Stewart, I thought, played a lot better. And the 2 guys, I love watching the big guys. I love watching Sampson and Reed. And they both played their 20 minutes. I think they should get more production from the rebounding. But, I mean, they're doing the dirty work inside. Reed just has the body type that I think fits better. Sampson gets up and down the floor better, Joe. But you think that the combination of Sampson and Mr. Reed, they're finally working together better? I mean, I know they don't play at the same time, but Hurley,
I think they have all year. I don't think that's been a problem at all. Some days Sampson's going to be better. Sometimes Reed's going to play better. I mean, I think when you have a 2-headed center like that, you look at their combined totals. You don't look individually and say, "Oh, Sampson had 6 points and 5 rebounds, so he didn't play well." But Reed had 13 and 8. You combine that, it's 19 and 13.
Exactly.
There's no single center in the country who's putting up numbers like that.
Exactly.
So, and it's always worked like since UConn got good the last 3 years, as we've talked about. It's always been a combine effort. It's been Sanogo and Klingon, and then Klingon and Johnson. Now it's Johnson and Reed.
Exactly. Dave, what did you think watching this against Nova? It's just they play that slower pace, that half court offense, and Caravan. Not Caravan. Mahaney just cannot get going. He's just so inconsistent. What are you thinking there?
Well, I think part of it is that they're playing away and they didn't play as well. And
being away.
Yeah, I think anytime you play away, other than maybe certain environments, is 10 points. You got to play 10 points better to win. They didn't play 10 points better, and they lost the game. Caravan missed those shots. Mahaney is very hit or miss. I mean, like, he has a great game, and then he's non-existent. I think they also, like Hurley style, they want to get up and down the floor. What Villanova did is at home, I think, only, because I think that when they come to us, they'll get smoked. But at home only, if it's close, they have an advantage there, and they're able to control the the clock and the possessions, and they did a good job of that. I think that ultimately was the difference, and we didn't handle that as well. So I mean, I think when we come home at UConn, I think when they come back to us, I think it's going to be a problem. I think Villanova's going to get smoked.
Yeah. And then it was good to see that they were able to come out and play well, at least better against Georgetown. Maria, what were your thoughts on that game, the Georgetown? Because I mean that was still close. There was still lower scoring, but UConn had the advantage, and Caravan played much better.
Yeah, I think the thing with Caravan, and like we've seen this the last couple of years with him. I don't know if Caravan is like the go-to 25-point game guy every game. Like that's just not his.
You don't think he's the alpha?
No, like I think where Caravan's great is when he can play off another great scorer. Like when McNeely's back, I think you'll see Caravan play better. Not that Caravan isn't capable of taking over a game, but he's just so good at all the stuff that doesn't necessarily show up in the box scores from a leadership perspective and the other things that he does. So I think being hard on him in terms of what he does or doesn't do. He does so many things that the naked eye doesn't even realize that keep them in the game, both offensively and defensively, whether it's a great screen, a great pass, a great read that sets up the next cutter to be wide open. But I just think that he thrives off of kind of being not the go-to guy, from an offensive perspective. So, Georgetown, I don't think Georgetown played well at all. I didn't think that they looked good. I thought we looked a lot better that day. Of course, too, it's like bouncing back after a loss after that, like you're a little fired up. So I thought we looked like we had a lot more urgency to start the game, which was good. But in terms of Caravan, I would just reiterate that. I think that he's better as like that second guy, as that second option, not necessarily as that first option.
Joe, what were your thoughts on Georgetown? Caravan played better. Solo ball still had his 15 points. Samson Johnson, I mean, he had his 9 points. He had his 5 rebounds. We didn't get as much out of his counterpart there, Mr. Reed, other than, I mean, he got rebounds. He didn't play as many minutes. But what did you think of this performance?
I wasn't surprised that they won.
Yeah.
I think Stewart didn't play well, but in that, that game, Mahaney did.
Right.
Diarra was Diarra. He's a pretty constant factor.
Right.
And Georgetown's not very good. If the Big East gets 4 teams in the NCAA tournament this year, that'll be a lot because it's just not the fantasy that the Big East is a great league is purely
it's a powerhouse.
It's a fantasy.
Purely that.
It's UConn, Marquette, St. John's, and maybe Creighton. Even Creighton's not as good as they've been the last couple of years. And then everybody else is mediocre or bad. Everybody talked about all this improvement in DePaul. Well, they haven't won a game in the league yet. Yeah.
I'm curious too if NIL, like Georgetown, I don't know their NIL situation, but their head coach was very successful at Providence and is really struggling at Georgetown, like to get players there. Like it doesn't look anything like what he had going on in Providence. I don't know if you guys, I don't know. Is that an issue there at Georgetown or is he not able to get players?
A couple years ago when NIL first started getting big, I talked with a good friend of mine who's a radio broadcaster in the Big East who's involved in his school. He doesn't just do the games. He actually works at the school. And we were talking about NIL and how it would affect the Big East. And he said there would be 3 teams in the Big East who would be able to match with the NIL. Those were UConn, Villanova, and Creighton. I think with Patino at St. John's now,
really,
you can add them to the list. But other than that, no. This Midwest school, Xavier Butler, no. Georgetown, no.
I thought Georgetown would be yes.
DePaul, certainly not. Seton Hall, no. So Providence, no. So I think, we've reached this stage in college athletics. And again, when it's got to be revenue sharing, there'll be ways that people will be able to find their ways around. I mean, look at the quarterback from Georgia is going to make $4 million.
Yeah, I saw that.
Come on. Seriously, it's Carson Beck. You're not talking Archie Manning here or Tom Brady. You're talking Carson Beck.
Coming off an injury. I know. We had a discussion about that.
And Joe, you said it without saying it, though. Like, if you hear the names of the teams that we think will struggle with NIL, what do they lack? Football programs.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, everybody in the Big East lacks football at Division I level, but UConn.
Well, right. Georgetown does. Georgetown is a Division I program.
Well, they're FCS.
Isn't it D3?
They're Patriot League. They're FCS, but they're non-scholarship though.
Yeah, they're non-scholarship. They're
right. So
you're right.
I think even though
actually, Butler has a football team too.
I think this Saturday will be a good game. I mean, it's at Gamble, which I think works to our advantage. But
right,
Creighton's one of those teams. I mean, they come out, they beat Kansas early on in the season, right? They played Marquette pretty much down to the wire. I think they lost by 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So they're capable, I think, of staying in there with good teams. So I don't think that this Saturday will be a cakewalk for us.
No, not at all. And
I love that we're playing it at Stores and not the Civic Center because I think that's a big advantage for us. But
this thing
Saturday will be another true test, and McNeely's not going to play. So
right. The thing you worry about with Creighton is making sure the big kid doesn't go off in the middle. The last couple of years with Sonogo and Klingon, they've done a pretty good job of containing him. But neither Johnson nor Reed is a terrific away from the rim defender. And he can step out and shoot the ball. And if Kalkbrenner starts going off, that gives them more confidence. Yes, I would agree. Playing at the at Gamble, especially when the students are in session, is an advantage. But the one thing about the XL Center, when it gets loud, it's as loud as Gamble because there's 6,000 more people there or 5,000 more people there. So I would think Creighton, they should beat Creighton if they play well. But if they don't, especially without McNeely, then they're susceptible. They could lose every game without McNeely. I mean, they have the potential. Not DePaul, because DePaul stinks. Not home games against the middle echelon, but road games. When they go to Xavier, if they don't have McNeely, that could be a difficult game. I haven't looked at this far enough ahead of the schedule. I think Marquette, he should be back by then. I think at Creighton, he'll be back by then. I think the St. John's games, he'll be back by then.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, because those aren't until February, so hopefully he'll be back by then.
Right.
Yeah.
Joe, I wanted to ask you because Coach K had made a quote. He had said that he believed the Big East and the ACC should merge together. Do you agree with his assessment?
Well, what interest does the ACC have in Butler, Xavier,
Creighton,
Hall, Providence? The answer is none.
Yeah.
The answer is none. Would it be a great fit for UConn? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't have to, your Olympic sports don't have to travel to the other end of the earth to play.
Correct.
Like they would in the Big 12. That was always my question when all the Big 12 talk came up.
People don't think.
Well, they had to travel in the American.
It was awful.
Sending your volleyball team to Memphis. If it wasn't a double trip, if it wasn't Memphis, Cincinnati,
Houston,
you're throwing Houston, SMU, you're throwing money away. No, I think Krzyzewski was looking at it from a big picture book, but the ACC, those ACC presidents, they didn't want to share money with UConn before.
No,
they're sure not going to want to spend money with share money with Providence, Xavier, and Butler or Seton Hall. I can tell you that.
No, I was just curious.
Or Georgetown.
Or DePaul.
He came out with that quote. I just thought it was asinine. Maria, you think the same thing? Coach K
Yeah,
saying
I mean,
that.
I think it's a home run for UConn. I agree.
Of course,
right?
of course.
I would even say, like, from a St. John's perspective, it wouldn't be bad. You got Patino, you got, their women's team hasn't.
But how much longer do you think Patino can last? I mean, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
Right.
some of these schools like the St. John's and the Seton Hall, like they just have such a hard time recruiting kids because of the makeup of their campus and stuff. That I don't know if they can sustain it. Like if Patino wasn't at St. John's, they'd be dismal right now. So
right, as they were.
Right. I mean, so you bring this head honcho in, but yeah, I mean, he's on the back nine. I mean, it's not like he's going to be here another 10 years.
Right.
I can't imagine. I'm surprised he's still coaching, to be honest. But
right.
Dave, was Patino at Iona for 2 years before he went to St. John's? I think it was 2 years, right?
I think it was.
Yeah, he had a lot of success in a short time period, but
I can't believe how good you look. I can't believe your hair.
Money. Hey, man,
Yeah.
When I get
You got a man crush going on today, Steve.
I'm just he doesn't dress up like this for me.
Feel great.
Yeah, he doesn't dress up like this for me, so that's why I had to ask. Maria, the Uconn women played over the weekend. Well, not over the weekend. They played 2 games last week, and they dismantled Xavier 81-27. I cannot believe 27 points were scored in a college basketball game. And then Georgetown 73-55. They're really starting. I mean, they've been rolling, but being without Paige, I think that obviously playing the Big East schedule gives them a little bit more confidence that they can get through it without her and maybe rest her a little bit longer. But they just obliterated Xavier. It was good to see AZ, drop 23. Sarah Strong played well. Jana, I gotta say it right. Jana Alfie is doing a nice job in the middle. What were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, Xavier's bad.
I just want to see Chen do more. That's the only one that bothers me.
Yeah, it's her. Xavier coach for second year. They're just not good. We did not look good against Georgetown in the first half. I think it was like a 3-point game at halftime. So I thought we looked really slow in the first half against Georgetown. Came out and played.
It was very slow in the first half. You're right.
One of the things that I feel like has to be a concern is some of the slow starts that the UConn women have had in the first half this year.
Right.
We saw that against USC.
Yeah.
We've seen it a couple other times. We saw it against Georgetown the other day. Obviously Paige didn't play. I don't know if she's going to play tonight at St. John's. They said a week last week, so I haven't seen anything that says she isn't playing tonight. St. John's, I think, is a little bit better than Xavier. I don't think they're as good. They're not as much of a threat as Georgetown. Georgetown's got a big center who can move a little bit, who I think gave us some fits a little bit in the first half. So I presume that we'll win that game tonight pretty handily. I'm sure we'll see Gino in an ugly sweater to commemorate one of his mentors tonight. So I suspect that we'll see an ugly sweater on the sideline. But I think the positive that I took out of the last 2 games for UConn is that, as predicted last week, AZ kind of got her feet under her, right? And she started scoring. She had 23 and 21.
Yes.
She played well. Sarah Strong did Sarah Strong things. She filled up the stats. I thought KK did a decent job. Ice Brady didn't play against Georgetown due to illness. She should be back tonight.
I'm not a big Ice fan. I'm not a big Ice fan, to be honest.
Well, you kind of have to be because you need another big in the rotation.
Right, because Sarah Strong isn't that person.
At least until Aubrey comes back.
Right.
So, it'll be good to have her tonight because it alleviates a little bit of the playing time from Sarah and El Afi. But Morgan Shelley played more minutes the last 2 games, which I thought was really good. I thought she played well. Ali Zeibel got 10 to 12 minutes each game, which was good. KK was fire off the bench, but Yeah, I think Caitlin Chen has got to.
I'm frustrated with her. I really
find a
liked
way
her
to
early on.
facilitate better. Like we can't keep going into games where Sarah Strong is leading us with assists, rebounds, points, like blocks. Like we got to start sharing the wealth a little bit and having other people build up some of these stats in different areas. And I think that, it's funny because I think KK is actually giving us more right now, but she's just a firecracker off the bench.
She's limited with what she can do. I get that.
So, well, it's not even that she's limited because I think Caitlin's limited in a lot of ways as well. They're just limited in different ways. I think, from a speed perspective, KK plays a lot faster than Caitlin does.
Yes.
So if you're in a situation where you want to speed the game up and play fast, I think KK is the answer. But, Caitlin's got to find, like, if you can compare her, Joe, to like last year versus Nika, like it's not like Nika was scoring 20 points a game, but the kid was getting 8 to 12 assists a game.
Right.
She's locking up the other team's best guard. It was just a different level of managing the offense than we're seeing this year. And I don't know yet if that's going to hurt us in the long run, because I think, like right now, we're just not playing against great guards yet. But as we get into the postseason,
right,
it could be a little detriment. I think KK is a better defender. So we'll see if he makes adjustments or he just pulls Caitlin early if he has to.
I agree with you though, Maria. I think KK is better off now coming off the bench because she gives him
the spark. Yeah,
gives him such a jolt of energy. And as far as Chen's concerned, I mean, not everybody comes in from another program and fits in right away. Example number one, Aiden Mahaney. She's been more. I think she's produced more for the women than Mahaney's produced for the men. But
overall,
and all you need her to be once you get Beckers back is you need her to be competent. You don't need her to be great. You don't need her to average 20 points. Because if you've got 3 players averaging close to 20 points a game in a 40-minute game against a decent competition, there's not that many possessions that you could do it. And you figure if you give KK 8 points a game, if you give Shade 8 points a game, if you give Shelly 4 to 6 points a game, so there's not a lot of points there to be had. And the other thing with assists, and I'll say this, and I've always said this, assists are a great stat if you have people on your team who can put the ball in the basket. If you have people on your team who can't put the ball in the basket, guess what you're not getting? You're not getting an assist. Pure and simple.
Yeah.
Man, you got to lay off those fucking things.
You're not. I wanted to ask Maria, someone like Caitlin
I guess
Chen.
our conversation went out the window, huh, Cully?
It's my gimmick. I get a lot of credit for my gimmick. Maria,
from the National Cancer Society.
I wanted to ask.
You should wear a hat. You should wear a cowboy hat and a flannel with a what do you call it? A little pocket in the front that you can put your.
Oh, you're right. I can have it right there for me.
Man,
Maria, I wanted to ask you, Caitlin Chen and Mahaney, when you're transferring to Uconn, does that put unfair expectations or more pressure on you to perform? And do you think they may be pressing to perform better than just relaxing and playing their game?
How do I answer this? Like PG here. Listen, you know what you're getting yourself into by transferring to Uconn.
Yeah, you're going to the best.
It's the same pressure that you get if you sign to play on at Uconn as a freshman. Like,
right.
You get what you signed up for. So with the hoorah and the accolades and the notoriety comes all this stuff. I don't think Caitlin is playing in a way where she's trying to force the issue. I guess for me, my only thing with
she
her
seems
is
passive to me.
I I don't know if it's passive. Holy cow.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe. Friend of Steve Culky.
I think
I can't
Caitlin
wait.
has been more
That's what you should
consistent
wear.
than Mahaney has.
I'm going to come out in a suit and tie next week. That's what I'm going to wear. I'm going to wear a suit and tie. So I get what you're saying. The hat on. You know what you're getting into. You're coming to UConn. There's going to be expectations. You have to live up to them. And it just seems to me, Caitlin Chen, I've watched her several times. She seems very tentative and passive. And I know she's a point guard and more of a facilitator, but she doesn't seem as aggressive as the other players.
But I don't think that we need her to be.
She doesn't need to be. Okay.
I think my only thing with her is like kind of to Joe's point, like we have some kids on UConn that can score. Every time I check the box score, she's got like 2 assists. And if I compare her to Nika last year, who had similar people to play with, actually probably more scorers last year than we have this year, right? I just think she facilitated the offense to the correct people more. I see Sarah and Paige doing that more this year, not necessarily the point guard. So I think really Caitlin's role is just like get us into our offense, get the ball over half court, try to get it to people in their spots and
right.
Contain on defense. So I don't think she's being passive. I think that's kind of the guard that she is. Like, she scored more at Princeton, but like she had to.
She had to.
Well,
yeah,
do you
you
think
said
it's
that.
a speed issue too? Like she's not used to seeing a level of speed that she's seeing now.
The adjustment to the Big East.
Mule was much more prepared for that. She plays super fast too. Like she made fast decisions. It doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think she was attractive to us as a transfer for her athleticism and speed. I think she was attractive from an IQ acumen standpoint.
Right.
Because in that position, her ability to pick up the offense and apply it quickly was huge, because I don't think a lot of point guards can come in.
And she earned a starting job. Yeah.
And be able to pick up the offense and where everybody needs to be as quickly as she has. So I think that the attraction for her was her acumen and her IQ and her ability to be steady.
Right. So what would you say realistically her production per game should be? Should it be 5 assists, 8 assists, and 6 or 8 points, and a couple rebounds and a couple steals? Is that kind of where she fits in?
Yeah, I mean, she's playing 26 minutes a game, right? On average, 26 to 28 minutes. So, I think to Joe's point, like 6 to 8 points a game, if we can get that from her, great. If not, then I think she's got to have 6 to 8 assists. To make up 8 minutes with Sarah Strong and Paige Beckers on the court, I don't see how you don't pick up some assists. I think it's harder not to.
Let me interrupt you for a minute, Maria, because I think this is important to note as well. In the offensive half of the court, she's not handling the ball that much. The ball's
no.
in Becker's hands and Strong, and Beckers and Strong create a lot on their own. So even if Chen passes them the ball, if they're taking 3 or 4 dribbles and doing a little shake and bake or whatever, she's not getting an assist on that. Yeah. I think the ability, her biggest thing that she's got to do is she's got to get the ball to the right people in the right spots and let them do their.
She's got to be the facilitator, like you said.
Yeah, and if it doesn't result on assist, knows where Paige can get the ball so she can make a drive to the hoop, or Sarah or AZ, then that's fine. I think getting hung up on statistics can be an issue. I think statistics are nice if they're used in the right vein.
Sure, you can control them however you want.
Often we use them as a crutch in evaluating players.
No, you're 100% right. You are 100% right. Statistics.
Of course I am. I'm the Marlboro man.
You can be used however you want them to be used. Maria, do you think
the Marlboro man put you in the middle of Times Square? On
exactly.
That's
it. You know what? I am going to do something that's going to be funny, and get back at all of you.
I don't think you're good at being funny. I'm waiting for it.
No, I would go with who you are. Keep lighting them up, and
Keep lighting it up.
Joe, I am curious. The 26 jersey in the back. What is that?
I got that when my time as the play-by-play voice ended because of the change in radio.
They gave you the 26 jersey?
Uconn, no.
Nice.
Uconn gave me a ball, which was nice, and I was introduced at midcourt in a game the next year. But I got it from Jim Calhoun's Charity Classic, and Ray Allen and people associated with Uconn gave it to me.
Oh, okay. That's nice. I'm still waiting for them to honor me. I wonder when that's coming. Maybe that'll be next year.
You spent 4 years there. I was there 26.
That's true.
Now, with your academics, you could have been there 26.
with my academic. Wow. With my academics.
You're not a good student, Steve?
I was a very good student. I just didn't always have perfect class attendance. I didn't have perfect class attendance. That's all. But it's, you don't need to go to class. Listen, I am street smart. You could put me in the middle of Harlem and I would survive because I'm a survivor and I'm street smart. And that's all that counts. Maria, I wanted to ask you about AZ. Do you think now that she's all the way back, do you think she's 100% healthy and, is good to go from here on out after these last 2 games?
Yeah, I thought she looked fine in the last 2 games. I think she did what she needed to do. I actually think she was healthy before that. I think it was more mental than anything. I think she needed a couple of games to put some good stats on the board. From a point perspective, I think she just needed to see the ball go through the net,
Right.
We forget about that as players sometimes. It's like yesterday I was watching a kid on my team warm up. She missed 13 threes in a row. And I'm always like, you got to see the ball go in. So if you miss 2 or 3 in a row, move in so you can see the ball go through the net. There's just something about it going through that gives you confidence to shoot the next. So I think for AZ, she needed to just have a couple of games where she saw the ball go through the net. I think we saw that. I think from a health perspective, she's fine. Now hopefully we get Paige back, healthy, good to go. We get Aubrey back, healthy, good to go before we hit, Tennessee and South Carolina in February.
Yeah.
And I think we'll be in really, really good shape.
And no more stalkers either.
I think these games were good for some of these kids because you gain confidence. You play some minutes that you wouldn't probably play if some of these kids were there. But now you've played them, so you know what it feels like. And if you need to in the future, you're capable.
And Joe, the same thing with Mahaney. He's been very inconsistent. He hasn't really gotten going. Do you continue to play him and play him and play him and hope that he comes around and starts producing better? Or do you get to a point maybe in a couple weeks where you've just thrown the towel on him and just say he can't do it and try to give other guys minutes?
Well, they're not going to do that, Steve, because then it'll look like the coaches made a mistake.
Oh, okay. They don't want to look like they made a mistake.
So, and look, I think for 10, 12, 15 minutes a game, he can be serviceable. And again, you're not looking for – you're just looking for consistency. You're not looking for stupid turnovers or bad shots or dopey fouls or getting burnt defensively. You want him to – and he seems like he's a very smart young man. The players love him. The coaches love him. He's got a great attitude, according to everybody who's up there. So no, they're not throwing the towel in on him. No chance. And basically, the bottom line is they can't.
No, they can't. They need him to contribute.
They need him for depth. He was brought in to be a starter. Now he's turned into a good depth piece. But no, he's not. They're not throwing in. And I wouldn't either, to be honest with you. I know he's been inconsistent, but you put him in there every game, and Maria knows this as a coach. You put him in there every game, hoping he can replicate or do better than his best performance.
Absolutely. Maria, tonight, the Uconn women play St. John's. They're at St. John's. And then Sunday, they're home against Seton Hall. What are your predictions for those two games? How do you see them faring?
Blowouts, both of them.
Not even close.
Yeah, no. I mean,
They're not even on the same level.
Again, if Paige is back tonight, maybe we win by 55. If she's not, maybe we win by 35. I don't know. I mean, St. John's doesn't have any post presence. They have some scrappy guards, but they just don't have firepower to beat us. Seton Hall, probably they said that it's maybe like slightly better. They're a well-coached team. Both teams are well-coached, both good guys. They're both blowouts. I think they're both cakewalks, if I'm being honest. I don't see either team being able to give us any trouble whatsoever.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. And it will only continue to improve Sarah Strong and her being her best self and being an impressive contributor and taking charge out there now that Paige hasn't been around.
Maria, do you think the schedule over the last few years hurts or helps them when they get into the NCAAs?
I mean, they do their best to schedule strong out of conference games. So, they got a couple of strong ones coming up in February. Do
you think it's enough, or do you think?
It's hard to tell. I mean, this has been years. This is not just the last few years. I mean, this is the last 25 years that it's been like this, where like the Big East schedule is really, really weak and you got to just rely on your out of conference schedule. I mean, I think that it never helps you when you're blowing every team out and you have a bunch of kids that have never played in close games, right? So I think there's always that component. But, I mean, we're talking about the best coach ever. So he'll have them ready no matter what for postseason and be able to make adjustments and do stuff in crunch time. So, it's not like they're playing in the SEC where every night is like a dogfight, which, by the way, Joe, I don't know if you watched last night. Shea Ralph's Vanderbilt team gave LSU a run for their money last night.
Oh, really? No, I didn't.
Yeah. They ended up losing by 6, but she might have the best one of the best 2-guard duos in the country right now. Probably the only one that I think might be better is Notre Dame. And I mean purely guards, because I'm not saying Sarah Strong is a guard, right? So she's done a phenomenal job recruiting. I think they're going to be really tough and fun to watch going down the stretch. But getting back to your question, I mean, listen, it always helps if you've played in a lot of really competitive games. But UConn always finds a way, and the coaching staff will make adjustments and they'll figure it out. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, for years, Maria's totally right. It's been maybe 30 years since UConn played in a competitive conference, which is no fault of their own. As bad as the Big East is, the American was even worse.
I
mean, UConn never lost.
I always say it's like an asterisk for those 4 years. Like, yes, they won the national championship 4 years when Stewie was there, but like they also played in the American those 4 years. Like they were not. They
the
were
worst
not,
of the worst.
They were fresh for the tournament. Like,
right.
I mean, you're talking the championship game in conference is a 55-point blowout. I mean, that's just, you don't see that in any other conference. It's just it's nuts.
No,
it's UConn and it's everybody else.
And as Maria said, the fact that they schedule such a good non-conference schedule takes any discussion about the bad league schedule out. Because look, Maria's right. They're fresher.
They even it out. Yeah.
They're fresher when they get to the NCAA tournament than some teams in these Power 4 leagues that beat the crap out of each other all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Because as the talent starts to get a little more dispersed than it used to be, it used to be concentrated on a few teams. Does that have an effect? But I mean, I'm speculating. I don't know.
But I would say this, David, the disbursement of talent, those kids aren't going to the lower level teams. They're going to the traditionally good teams. So St. John's isn't getting a Sarah Strong type player.
Like the SEC.
DePaul's not getting, and DePaul's good because Doug Bruno can coach most years. But Butler and Xavier aren't getting the Paige Beckers type of player.
I mean, when they go to the NCAAs, like the SEC or
sure,
Big Ten.
Do those teams? And I'm just asking. I really don't know if they do or they don't. But just because it's been, we've struggled a little bit in the last few years, and of being able to get over that hump. And there's two sides to the coin. You could say, Paige and that crew have not been quite good enough, or you could say, they haven't been put in enough situations, and every time they get in those situations, they seem to struggle, right? So
don't forget, like the last 3-4 years at UConn. I mean, you're talking major injuries, season-ending injuries, some multiple players,
right,
each year, right? I mean, we're not talking sprained ankles. We're talking torn ACLs late into the season or torn ACLs to start the season. So I do think, not that you ever want to think injuries play that big of a role, but I mean, when you look at the UConn women over the last 3 years, it's like, I don't know if it's something in the water or what.
They've had everything thrown at them. Yeah.
Major injuries to vital contributors on the team does not help, because then your depth is lower too, and now you get 1 or 2 people in foul trouble in the tournament, and what are you going to do?
2001 might have been the best UConn team in that whole era, but Shea and Svetlana went down with injuries, and they still were up 15 on Notre Dame in the Final Four. And that's the other thing, is that we're so spoiled in Connecticut by the success of the basketball team. They go to the Elite Eight every year. Men can't say that. Men have gone to the final. Men have won the last 2 years, but what happened in the 6 years before that? Men weren't a factor. Got bounced 2 years in a row.
And they lose to New Mexico? Or
do other teams have, on the women's side, do other teams, and this is obviously a question more for Maria, do other teams have as many issues that we've, unluckily, I guess, had?
With injuries?
Catastrophic injuries? You know what I mean? That is this I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that go around study wise as far as some of the injuries that women have had in basketball and stuff.
I think you've seen an uptick across the board in injuries. And I think early specialization has a lot to do with that.
Okay.
Very early.
So I do think there's that.
Okay.
I don't think that programs, the elite programs, if we took the last 4 years, the top 6 to 8 programs in the country every year have definitely not had the amount of season-ending injuries that UConn has had.
Right.
However, they're still happening. I mean, the girl from South Carolina just tore her ACL.
Yeah.
So stuff happens. But I feel
do you think that there's methodologies specific to training basketball players and women athletes that some strength and conditioning coaches, though they might be great strength and conditioning coaches, haven't adapted more towards the women's women's bodies, with the women's style of play, in order to help them not get some of those catastrophic? Because I've seen a lot of stuff that's been coming out.
We got Andrea Hootie.
Hootie's made changes. Yeah, Hootie's tried to.
She's the best in the business, right?
Right.
But and she's getting a lot of slack the last couple of years.
She has.
And I mean,
she got slack in Texas, and I love Andrea. I know her really well, but she got a lot of slack in Texas.
Well, I don't think we mean slack. I think crap.
Crap.
She hasn't gotten slack. A lot of people are trying to blame Hootie for these injuries and stuff.
Texas,
that's your bullshit.
That happened too. On Texas, a lot, unfortunately, that was that.
Yeah, she got a lot of flack for it. She did.
Yeah. Yeah.
She did.
Yeah, I mean, again, I really truly believe that specifically on the women's side, like if you look at AZ and you look at Paige as an example, right? You're talking early specialization since like 9, 10 years old.
Right.
When they were playing.
Time
Yep.
they get to Hootie, they've already got issues with their body
Right.
that she can't fix, right? Like she can try to help prevent some of this stuff. But then you see some people that go all the way through. And again, like look at Nika Mule. She plays 4 years at Uconn. I don't think she was injured once.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She goes straight from Uconn, plays in the WNBA, then goes straight overseas, and in the first game tears her ACL.
Right.
So again, I think on the women's side, it's just we're obviously built a little bit differently than men. We're more
Right.
susceptible to specific injuries based off of our genetics. And I think the wear and tear on our bodies,
The workload.
yeah, it's just different. And I do think early specialization is just a big thing. Like I tell all my kids to play multiple sports.
Were you a multi-sport athlete when
Me?
Yeah.
I was in high school. Yeah.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
What else did you play in high school?
So I did track and fields. I did a little bit of softball. Yeah. And I was a big racquetball player in high school. So, I was still playing a lot of basketball as my main sport, but I was doing some other stuff. I dabbled in volleyball for a little bit. So, I did some other things besides just basketball 24/7. But, it also was different back then because don't forget, guys, nowadays, these kids, their early specialization.
It's crazy.
School ends, right? They go to their shooting trainer for an hour. Then they go to their strength and conditioning coach for an hour. Then they go to their other trainer for basketball for an hour that puts them through an hour half-court workout. Then they go to practice for 2 hours. So back then it was like, if I was playing pickup. That's a little bit different on the body than all this specialized stuff that these kids have access to now. So they're coming out more skilled and they're great and whatever, but their bodies are way more beat up.
They're banged up.
Very interesting.
Joe, I just wanted to ask you because the big game is obviously Saturday, which is a whiteout at Gamble Pavilion against Creighton. And then next Tuesday, they play Butler. And it's Jersey night at the XL Center. Maybe I'll go get a jersey. What are your thoughts on those two games?
I think they beat Creighton by 10 to 12.
Wow.
And I think they beat Butler by 15 to 20.
15 to 20. Okay. And just off topic, Notre Dame, Ohio State national championship game. Ohio State minus 8.5.
Can they play a scoreless tie?
No, I don't think so. I
think Notre Dame's on a magic carpet ride.
That's what Dave thinks too. God damn it.
I agree.
I think Notre Dame wins a very close game. I just think they're on a magic carpet ride.
Yeah. Maria, you too?
And I think he's a hell of a coach.
I love him as a coach. I don't
like him. I despise him.
Why?
I think he's a great coach.
I said that to Dave last week on Conlon's Corner. I said, I really like this guy.
Everyone loved him. Everyone loved him.
Why don't you love him?
He carries himself. I love how he's team first in an era where he knows guys are transferring and leaving, and that's just how the world is.
Yeah, I know.
He's focused on team first. He's focused on his players. He's focused on what they have to do. He doesn't want all the other stuff. He wants to deflect any emphasis on him. I think he
runs a good program.
Now, of course, in football, 2 years from now, he could lose and they run him out of town. But right now, I think he's absolutely exactly.
He's the right guy for the right job.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I think he's 100 times better than James Franklin.
I agree. I don't like James Franklin either. But yeah, good. That's good. I just wanted to get your predictions on that.
Who do you think's going to win, Mr. Football?
I think Ohio State's going to win by a mile. Just so you know,
By a mile.
By a mile, yes. They're going to cover.
Wow.
They have better athletes. They're more explosive on offense. Notre Dame folds in big games.
How do you say that? How did they fold in big games so far?
They
didn't fold in the semifinals.
They played well against a Georgia team who didn't have their quarterback.
Well, but that's not Notre Dame's fault.
No, it's not. And they played Indiana, who's Indiana.
What about Penn State?
I agree. I never thought Penn State was great to begin with. I think that Ohio State will win. I think Ohio State will be victorious.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree with that, Steve. But saying that they fold in big games, this is this year.
Well, the national championship game 2 years they got destroyed in, and
they're talented. The only thing I can see is if the only thing nobody knows is if Ohio State is really, they spent so much money on all these players. Do they have that much more talent than Notre Dame? If that's the case, then
Notre Dame's banged up.
Yeah, the running backs are a little banged up. They're very good,
yeah.
But I told Steve, I said if it's a close game, my money's on Notre Dame.
Right.
If it's a game where Ohio State is just, you'll know pretty quickly if Ohio State's that much more talented. I think you'll know pretty quickly.
Well, Joe, I appreciate that you put on the bottom that you're a friend of Steve Culky. That's very nice of you. And you put on a flannel in the hat to represent the Marlboro Man. That was very nice of you as well. I appreciate it. I appreciate the thought that you put into every show. And I didn't get fact checked that much this week. I only missed on.
You didn't say much interesting. That's why.
I said a lot interesting. They didn't use girls. I used girls once. They're women. So I will say for the icon himself, the voice of.
Before you sign off, where are our Westcott women this week, Maria?
Oh, Maria, yeah. I didn't know who they were playing. I know they played yesterday.
We're at Keene State tomorrow. Winnable game. If we come out and execute the scouting report, which we've struggled doing. And then we play UMass Dartmouth on Saturday, who's ranked in the top 10. So
is that a home game or on the road?
Saturday's home.
Okay. Good luck.
And Eastern was a rivalry game, right?
Thank you.
Eastern Connecticut, that was your rival?
Stunk.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
For the icon himself, the voice of the Huskies, and he is my friend, Joe D'Ambrosia. And I didn't ask my second question, which was, I had a dream, Joe, that I was applying for a job and I needed a reference. And I thought to myself, would Joe D write me a reference? So that was going to be my question.
It depends what the job is.
If I asked Joe D, it would be for like a radio show. I'd get my own radio show.
Oh, absolutely. I'd recommend you, Cully.
Joe would write me a recommendation. That's all I needed to know. Okay. And Maria, the Uconn women's legend, Western Connecticut State women's basketball coach. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the best of luck. Coach Schuman, with your nice hair and goatee and trying to show me up. I'm going to wear a suit and tie next week because of you, the next greatest influencer. This has been Husky Hoops. I am the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Culky. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at life.